"We're scared of China," fisherman Benjo Ate says as wind and rain batter his small bamboo boat on the island of Palawan in the Philippines. He shouts orders at his young crew, most of them family, as they haul on ropes to navigate out of the port. They are already bathed in salt water and sweat, but it is not the weather that frightens them, BBC reports. "The Chinese ships circle us and shadow us," he says. "When we are anchored, they would force us to leave. They would get rid of us." The Philippines is at the center of a tense territorial standoff with Beijing in the South China Sea.It is among several countries that have protested against a map issued by China this week, which reiterated its claim to over 90% of the sea. Where previously Manila may have softly whimpered at China's actions to block its ships, its voice has now soared to a roar, emboldened by support from Washington and its allies. "We are worried about rising tensions, of course, but that doesn't daunt us," said Jonathan E. Malaya, the Assistant Director General of the Philippines National Security Council. In recent months, the Philippines has given the U.S. access to key military bases, hosted the largest ever joint military drills between the two countries, and repeatedly called out Beijing's aggression in the South China Sea. Even as Philippine and Chinese Coast Guards engage in a now familiar cat-and-mouse game on the disputed waters, Manila has announced plans to train fishermen to protect their territory out at sea. The message is clear. If you are a Filipino, whether in government or the private sector, regardless of your politics, defending and making excuses for China's aggressive behavior should deem you unpatriotic and a traitor to the Philippines and to our people, Jay Tariela, a spokesperson for the Coast Guard in the West Philippine Sea, wrote on social media. China's claims, which extend to all of the South China Sea, rival not just the Philippines, but also Vietnam, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Brunei. These are not new, but they are getting louder and dicier. The latest episode revolves around the remote Ianjin Shoal that lies more than 620 miles, 998 kilometers, from mainland China's southernmost shore, and around 120 miles from Palawan Island. Chinese vessels have used water cannon and lasers to deter the Philippine Coast Guard from getting close to the shoal in the last 6 months. The boats were carrying essential water and food to troops aboard a rusting warship named Sierra Madre that Manila intentionally grounded on a reef in their waters. It was a determined and calculated move to try to keep a presence on the shoal. This is territory the Philippines won in an international court in 2016, after a tribunal said Beijing's sweeping claim to sovereignty over most of the South China Sea had no legal basis. These are lucrative fishing grounds, and access to the shoal also means access to nearby Reed Bank, which has significant reserves of oil and natural gas. Seemingly undeterred by Chinese might, the Philippines tried again to send supplies to its troops on the Sierra Madre. This time, they said they were successful. "It really is a David versus Goliath issue," Mr. Malaya said. "But just like David, We will continue to pound and double down on the need to protect the resources which are important for the future of the Philippines. But Beijing does not see it that way. It claims the Sierra Madre is violating its sovereignty. A Chinese Coast Guard statement described its actions to use a water cannon on the Filipino vessel as professional and restrained. Manila said it tried to use a hotline it set up with China to defuse the situation, but no one answered the phone. We would like to resolve this issue, said Mr. Malaya, but admitted that progress is slow and there is, at present, no meeting of the minds. Unlike his predecessor, Rodrigo Duterte, who sought to court rather than criticize China, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos has shifted closer to Washington. He has also made each spat with Beijing in the South China Sea public. If the Philippine Coast Guard struggles to resupply the grounded ship on Ionjin Shoal, it is televised. Crucially, the U.S. is not too far away.